Right, fantastic. Thanks, Alex. Good morning, people. I know we've got some familiar faces, but we've also got some new faces. For those of you that have not actually seen me in person, I am only 5'2" and I am Jenny Milne. I have disappointed a few people recently when they thought I was about 6 foot, but I am only 5'2", so keep that in mind. Anyway, welcome to our last cafe, can't believe I'm saying that, of 2022. As you all know, because you signed up for it, it's Mobility Hub Chat today, and we're joined by Rennie. But before I get to Rennie, I'll do the housekeeping bits and pieces. So as the coffee mug says in front of you, the chat box is your friend, and we have people, as I said earlier before we started, from Finland and Sweden and all the rest of it. So please do make yourself known in the chat box. Plenty of opportunities later on to speak to people as well. It's all about being positive. If you can just keep muted at the very beginning for Rennie and myself, and then it's unmute yourself later on when we get towards 11 o'clock, and we will get to the chatting. As always, a big thanks to our supporters, and we've got some of them here today. Smarter Choices, Smarter Places, the Routing Company, SRA are here, CILT are here today, and I'm not sure if I've seen Broadway appear yet, but if they are, again, thank you very much, guys, for helping to keep SRITC going. Now, my wee little bit at the top of the corner there is cake. For those of you that haven't been to a cafe before, cake is really important. I am known as the cake lady. So BYOC means bring your own cake. So I have to confess, I was just talking about this before we went live, I have apple tray bake. And like many people in Scotland, we are inundated with apples at the moment. So they are in the freezer. So please do show me if you are there, and I can get you on my screen, if you have a cake or something in front of you. Rennie's got something. Rennie, what have you got?
I've got a shop bought hazelnut chocolate croissant.
But what she's not telling you, what she's got downstairs cooking away, which is what?
My first sourdough in 2 years.
Yay!
From the ninja!
Anybody else got cake? Because it is a cafe, so a cake or a biscuit or an apple or even just a cup of tea, show it to me, because that's what we're doing. We're having a coffee and a cake. Yay, Jenny's got one, and Michael's got one. Cheers, fantastic. Right, and then Jim and Nick. Okay, I'm the only one without a cup of tea. I'll get that rectified shortly. So 2023, your New Year's resolutions are to have some cake for cafes, or really unhealthy cake. That's even better. Anyway, for those of you that haven't been to a cafe before and don't really know much about SRITC, I always like to share something about who we are and where we came from. So I founded SRITC back in 2018, but we have grown and grown and grown, which is fantastic. We're not just Scotland, we're global. And it's about bringing like-minded people together, whether you're a community development trust, whether you're government, whether you're a transport operator, it doesn't matter, or just a pure citizen passionate about rural transport, this is your home. So this is a bit of a slide that I've been sharing recently about what we are and what we stand for. We're about collaboration. We're about obviously rural communities. We're very much about that bottom-up approach rather than top-down. We're about engaging with people, giving us all a voice. So it's actually really nice. Some of you here today sent some fantastic emails to me this week, and it was lovely to get some nice feedback and some support, because sometimes you just wonder, are you doing the right thing? Are you going along the right lines? So for those of you that sent emails this week, thank you very much, really appreciate it. So more information on the website if you need it, but I'm not going to bore you because we're all here to hear about what's happening in Midlands Connect. But before I get there, it is the last cafe, so it would be wrong of me if I didn't tell you what we've done in 2022. So in the bold is the actions that have happened. So we've always had our cafes and we've had our newsletters, which you all receive either on a Wednesday or a Thursday if it doesn't land in your spam. But what we've managed to do with the support from the supporters at the early on stages I outlined is actually put together an SRITC strategy. And if anybody wants to see that, then they can email us and we can share it. But that actually gives a scope for the next 18 months to 3 years of where we want to go and how we're going to get there. And within that, one of the things is creating an advisory board. So some of you have joined today to stay on at the end of the Zoom to see what that's going to involve and if you want to be part of it. And if you haven't put your hand up yet to that, but want to be part of creating the advisory board and being part of that board going forward for SRITC, then just stay on. We've also designed and developed a product which we were engaged by Scottish Rural Action and Scottish Government, as you all know, to do some stakeholder engagement and design, and that was the output of the National Transport Strategy to Spotlight on Rural, which again you can find on our website. And again, thank you to all of those that took part. Ariana is going to probably put some bits and pieces in the chat about our socials, because obviously we've had Ariana working away feverishly for the last year on social media and all our platforms there, and engaging with people and finding out information and bringing it together and sharing it to you. So that's grown exponentially, which helps everybody, because then we can start pull things together. Then we had a bit of a blip in September, didn't we, when we had to change the gathering from being in person to being online in the space of about 4 days. So that was quite an undertaking, not only putting together the gathering for September to be in person, with some of you coming from overseas as well, but also then to literally pivot it, and I have to say that because it's Friends and everybody uses the word, don't they? Pivot it and put it to online. So that was a success. And we've also successfully got another year's funding from Smarter Choices, Smarter Places. So we've had impact, we've grown yet again, and we keep growing. And the whole point of SRITC, and the reason I wanted to found it, was to bring together everybody that's here today and be able to generate some revenue and to do some work to then be able to make the profits be reinvested into this organization's supporters. So that's the communities, that's the organizations there. So if we start to generate revenue, then that profit then will get distributed amongst the community. So that's the whole desire for it. So 2023 is focusing onto that. So we will have some new recruits, and some of them are hovering in the background today to hear and learn more about SRITC. And that will be a virtual assistant, and it will be a research and impact officer. So my point would be, keep an eye on your spam, because you might get emails from different people other than myself or the gathering email address. We're also going to be having the gathering come hell or high water in person in May in 2023. So you will be there, and we will be streaming it. It is hybrid, so if you can't get there, but I know a few of you are traveling from overseas. We're going to be looking at measuring our impact and increasing that evidence base, which you can contribute to. We're also going to be consolidating the advisory board and having that as a firm entity, and there'll be some new products and services coming, so particularly a learning knowledge centre, and looking at training and mentoring and facilitation and helping to support our community and other people around the community. So there's a lot that's gone on, there's a lot that's going to go on. And people keep forgetting, because they tell me, oh, I didn't realize this. This isn't my main job. It's not Alex's main job either. We all have day jobs. So this is something that bumbles along in the background and is our voluntary time. So I think a well done to everybody in the team, because we've achieved a huge amount. And that also goes well done to the community here, because you're helping shape the community going forward. So 2023 is going to be rather exciting. And not just for SRITC, is it, Rennie? Because Rennie, I'm going to eat my apple tray bake that my son made. And he said, you are going to say that I made it, aren't you? He's 12. I was like, yes, I will say that you made it. Don't worry. So I will scoff that. Okay, Rennie, yeah. The floor is yours.
Yeah, this is where my presentation doesn't want to start. No, it does.
Well, it worked earlier, so I'm sure it will
Yeah,
work.
exactly. We did try it.
Yeah, go for it.
Make sure I share the right screen.
Just to warn people, there is a video at the end. So if your bandwidth isn't great, you may need to switch off videos at that point. But over to you, Rennie.
Okie doke. Well, hi. I'm just going to minimize the window of people because they're distracting. But yeah, so I'm Renee. I'm Principal Transport Planner at Midlands Connect, and I'm our Rural Mobility Lead and the Decarbonisation Lead as well. And those two obviously go quite well hand in hand. So I'm going to talk to you today mostly about the Rural Mobility competition that we ran last year. Well, into this year, mostly this year actually. I'm a little bit confused about times because I came back from maternity leave sort of as that competition was wrapping up. So so hopefully I've got enough details for you to keep you interested. Anyway, so I've got a few slides for you, hopefully nothing too boring. So there we go. Just a quick thing on Midlands Connect. So we're a subnational transport body, so we cover the region, and we really sort of see ourselves as the people who research, develop and progress transport projects for the region. And our motto is to create a fairer, greener, stronger Midlands. So obviously rural mobility is a big part of that. We're one of 7 subnational transport bodies. Sharon, who's here, is from one of the others, and who Transport Ease, and they're actually the lead nationally on rural mobility now. So definitely keep an eye on her. So we're a partnership, and we include local transport authorities, LEPs, local economic partnerships, chambers, airports, those sort of things. So yeah, and our geographically we range from sort of the Welsh borders up to the Lincolnshire coast as well. So just a brief recap on our rural mobility projects, and as Jenny probably pointed out, as we've presented a few times before, just to talk about the different things that we've done over the years. So we started in 2019 with a future of rural mobility study. I've just realized I haven't typed out that properly, but there you go. So that was sort of a fact-finding mission, and it developed a bit of a toolkit. One of the things that was suggested in that toolkit was rural hubs and how they might help. So the next thing we did in 2020 was to develop guidance for local authorities on how to plan for rural hubs, what they should have, how could they work commercially, where should they be, all those sort of things. But particularly with a focus on what the rural needs were in different communities, and how they could best be met. And we did a few case studies, desk-based case studies, applying the guidance as well. After that, we gave 2 of our local authority partners a bit of money to apply the guidance and give us some feedback. So that was in 2021, and we got some really good feedback from them, and we've rewritten, well, not quite rewritten the guidance, but we've really simplified it to publish soon. Then there was the rural mobility competition. So we basically invited ideas on a page. We shortlisted 3 ideas that we teamed up with our partners for further development, and then there was a Dragon's Den style panel to choose a winner. Yeah. So that's the one I'm going to be talking about today. So the rural mobility competition, a lot of words on this slide, but basically we wanted a solution that works for a specific rural area, but would also demonstrate that there's an ability to scale it up to benefit the entire region. So for different communities in different places. And using a novel approach, because that's what it was, to procurement effectively. We really hope to foster innovation within the solution provided. So this obviously presented numerous challenges, but at the end of the day, it was wholeheartedly supported by the Department for Transport and partners. So that's, you know, that's what matters at the end of the day. But it was challenging to find innovators that we could work with, and you know, we could award a large sum of money to, because that's what the end game of the project really. And so the path to procurement was difficult, I think it's fair to say, because, you know, as a public authority, obviously we have processes in place for procurement, and rightfully so, because obviously we want to make sure that money is spent well. But when you're trying a different approach, there are a lot of hoops to jump through to make sure that you follow the rules and everything is fair and square. So yeah, but at the same time, you know, having this, for example, the Dragon's Den style panel with an economist, a different STB, you know, different type of people on the panel, brings a different perspective as well. So, you know, all good things in our book. So in terms of the process, so we received submissions from businesses, which were then asked to present their ideas, new ideas that could help solve the social, environmental and economic issues caused by poor connectivity. So we had a shortlisting stage, which is the open invitation, which asked for ideas on a page almost. And I've got an example of the lean business canvas that they were asked to complete, and I've popped that in the Padlet as well for people to have a look at. So those shortlisted ideas were then, so 3 were selected, given some seed funding for the consultant to work with a Midlands Connect sponsor, so a local authority transport partner. So that's really to work up the idea in a bit more detail to see how it could work specifically in a specific area, and then prepare a presentation for the Dragon's Den style panel. The winning pitch for that would be provided, has been provided with additional funding and support to fully scope a pilot. As it happens, the winning, actually I'll talk about that later, but there you go. So this is the a bit more on the process. So this is the lean business canvas that in the first phase we were asked to complete. So it asks for things like strategic fit, metrics, what the solution is, what, who is aimed at, who would be the first people to adopt the innovative solutions, what the cost structure is, all that sort of thing. So just a good idea, really. So an idea of kind of information that we asked people to complete. And the competition was supported through advice from Connected Places Catapult to make sure that we had both a fair and productive process. And we were given access to their business ecosystem as well, so we could widen the pool of businesses that ideas and proposals could come from. But then they did have to, obviously because of GDPR, we couldn't just send their details through to people on our framework, because that would be a bit, it wouldn't follow the rules, basically. So we had to then ask the people on the CPC business ecosystem, did they want to be part of the project? And then we had to talk to the people on our frameworks, because that's how we procure things, to team up with those businesses. So yeah, it's a bit of a convoluted process, but we got there in the end. So yeah, so the actual winner, I just want to talk about the area that it covers first. So it was Buxton and the Hope Valley, so in Derbyshire. So obviously this is the home of the Peak District National Park, nestled between big cities like Sheffield and Manchester, not far from Birmingham. So obviously quite a popular national park in terms of visitors as well. So Buxton is a spa town on the edge of the Peak District. It's got a reasonable public transport connectivity, including rail, but it's not world class. There's a convergence of roads in the town, so that causes congestion. And then the Hope Valley is a group of villages in North Derbyshire, a bit further north, with limited public transport connectivity, and therefore quite a car dependent areas. So alignment between different transport modes is an issue, as is limited availability of public car charging as well. Buxton does have 2 car club vehicles, 1 car and a van. And obviously the area has high visitor numbers as well, many of which come by car. So the winning solution was put forward by Senex and Car Share and Co-Charger, and it was developed in partnership with Derbyshire County Council. So it's a digital journey hub, community journey hub, which integrates sharing of vehicles, so peer-to-peer vehicles and car club as well, share lifts, and also charge points. And the project was supported by a wider group, which included the Buxton Town team, the Hope Valley Climate Action, and also Enterprise in Kinto. So quite a wide sort of range of organisations involved in developing that project. So once developed, this platform will allow particularly EV users across Derbyshire to rent out their private charge points. So particularly giving people access to more chargers, and it will also promote car sharing by providing opportunities for people to rent out their own cars when they're not using them. And this means that people who don't have cars, who don't have their own cars, can be around more easily, but also it opens up opportunities for electric vehicle ownerships to groups who may not have benefited before, whether they might not be able to afford having an EV themselves, or whether they don't have, they might not have a drive to actually put a charge point on. So this will be available hopefully next year. We're just sort of dealing with the procurement of it at the moment. So yeah, benefits that include, information. The tool will provide information about shared mobility, help users to select from offerings that are market ready. Solution, it leverages apps and products that are already available from their industry partners. So it reduces duplication and keeps the cost down as well. So it's low cost, and so it frees up funding for incentives and community outreach. So the program will actually have somebody in the community talking to people about using this platform. And the solution is replicable to other communities and scalable to other services as well. And finally, a revenue share will be reinvested in the website. So going a bit more about the scaling bit. So it was really important to us that, you know, we can find one of the winning project would have a way of being replicated across the region. So it's quite low cost to produce a new front end, a new website for a different community. And because the project includes a market town and small villages, we can prove that, you know, we can demonstrate that this solution works in different settings. And then the other thing is that it'll be quite easy to integrate other services as well, and different communities would have different services that are listed on it, because, you know, what we don't want is a long list on the website and then people click through and actually it's not available in their area. So that would be, you know, the sign up would filter out the initiatives that are available in their specific area as well. So a little bit from the runners up. So there was 3 projects that went through to the Dragon's Den style panel. So there was a DOT app, which was developed by DOB and DB Engineering Consultant with East Lindsey District Council and Lincolnshire Local Enterprise Partnership. So this allowed users to pre-order and access demand responsive transport, provided shared minibus and car trips where there's no public transport available. And then there's a digital platform for integrated journeys developed by City Signs in partnership with Malvern District Council. And that was an online planning and analysis tool, bring together loads of different bits of data to help plan better transport provision. So that was more of a local authority sort of benefit. And then at the same time, there's also a real-time information section on it. So that would benefit the actual users of the transport as well. So what's next for us? So obviously we're launching, we'll be launching this platform next year. We're just dealing with the procurement fallout for it. And while we expected at the end of the process to fund a pilot, it's actually, we're funding the development of a pilot. We're actually funding the pilot itself. So that's quite a nice benefit for us. Yeah, so that we're working on that, and then we're also working on a centre of excellence now. I just noticed from Jenny's slide that she's working on something similar, so I think I'll have a discussion with her about that separately. But what we did when we developed our transport strategy is we did a capability and capacity review. So we asked our local authority partners where they needed help, and knowledge sharing, etc., is crucial for authorities who don't have that, you know, who don't have unlimited resources. Things like providing access to key information, research plans, reports, etc. We really support our partners' everyday work and their long-term strategic planning as well. And then another thing we do, we've started doing last year, is develop an annual rural mobility conference as well. So I'm not sure which time of the year. Last year it was in June. This year, sorry, it was in June, but I'm not sure what time of the year it'd be in our program next year, but I'm sure I'll be telling you about it. So then to finish, I've just got a small video which I'm hoping will play. It did earlier, so fingers crossed. Start at the start. There we go, and I'll maximize it.
Today we've brought together a number of people from around the region who are passionate about rural issues and solving those rural issues. We've just launched our 2022 strategy, which more than ever is looking at how we reach out to all Midlanders, build a fairer, stronger, greener Midlands. And we've also used this platform to announce the winner of our rural mobility competition.
And we'll be promoting peer-to-peer car sharing in Buxton and Hope Valley in Derbyshire. Our plan is to produce a website that will enable people in the area to find out more about peer-to-peer car sharing and electric charge point sharing and find out how they can get involved.
Here we are in a lovely touristy village called Hathersage, and behind me you've got a main road with lorries, multiple cars, constant noise. And it doesn't have to be like this. You know, this is a beautiful central part of the national park. For us, the importance of this project is to enable people to find other people locally who they might want to share a car with.
And what we're trying to convince people is that You don't need a car that's sitting outside your house for 85% of the time doing nothing. Maybe you can share a car. Maybe you can share a charger with someone down your street that has space on their driveway. These are all solutions that are possible. Charging vehicles at home is by far the easiest thing, but as you can see, with a street like this, it's almost impossible. And therefore we need to look at ways of sharing chargers.
If I knew somebody in the village who would get an electric car and use that charger and pay me for it, and that would mean one less petrol or diesel car on the roads, I'd be perfectly happy to let them share it because I probably know them already.
Improving access to shared and better transport options will open economic and educational opportunities to people. We know there's a cost of living crisis, so we need to help people find ways that they can still travel where they need to go without it breaking the bank. And it's just really important to start addressing these challenges, or run the risk of, in 10 years' time, sitting there and thinking, why haven't we made more progress? And we really do need to start making progress.
We have to face the fact that it's not commercially viable for a town this size to have an endless number of public chargers. So the solution will have to be in sharing the ones that we already have in people's houses. And this can work with the appropriate technological backup.
There we go. That was everything from me.
Fantastic, thank you, Rennie. I have to say, it's the first time we've actually done a video in ever on a cafe. So I was keeping stum going, is it going to work? Is it going to work? And it did. So fantastic, thank you. And I also have to say a big thanks to Rennie, because she's been a huge supporter, even on mat leave, of SRITC. So every year she has done a presentation since we went online, and we were online before a pandemic. So Rennie, 2023, you will be in person at the gathering, won't you? Please.
I am trying to wrangle my husband into coming to Scotland with me.
We've still never met in person, so we're going to. But before I quickly put the floor open, I'm going to take advantage of the fact we've got some international people here today. So I'm going to ask Magnus, if I may, from Sweden, just to say literally 2 minutes about what they're doing on mobility hubs. And if Jenny in Finland or Laurie in Italy want to say anything about other international examples, please jump in after Magnus. Off you go, Magnus.
Okay, yeah. So I jotted down some few things to say. So where I'm coming from is that we're offering rural mass services in the western part of Sweden. And doing this and working with this stuff for several years now, it's kind of obvious to us and the researchers that I'm working with that the hub idea has some clout to it and is able to provide better access for people also in much sparser geographies than the cities. We also started studying Untravel now. We added Untravel as a mobility service, and Untravel for us is basically co-working spaces in rural settings. So we have, you know, parish homes and what have you, just offering a few tables and a coffee machine and maybe a copier, all the way up to more professionalized co-working spaces. That is, so when we started to study this issue of hubs, and we're in the middle of thinking, we haven't actually developed this stuff yet to a point where we have it all systematized, but still, we came to focus on more on ideas on centers of gravity within geographies where things can happen. So for instance, a co-working space can be sort of an embryo with regards to a hub, but maybe the bus station or the bus terminal is in some other place in that rural setting. So the hub is a sort of fluid geography for us at this stage when we're thinking about it. But we are currently looking into what types of functions do hubs need to offer to make them attractive, and how can we make it so that people actually use their own car to get to the hub and then use public transportation from the hub for the rest of the journey. It might be the case that we're a little bit surrendering the last and first mile challenge to the actual private car, and then providing hubs with really strong public transportation offerings. That might be the case. We don't know that yet. So in Sweden, people would typically also charge their cars at home overnight. Basically, all Swedish houses have private driveways. So the challenge presented by the winners here is not the Swedish one. So we don't need charging infrastructure in our hubs, but we think that we might want to add some kind of integrated delivery services, and the technical platform that we're using to provide the mobility services in the areas where I work actually has those functions included. So one can imagine that several stores could pull together and then drop stuff off at the hub where I could pick it up when I get off the bus and before I get into my car. That's the kind of lines we're thinking along. And the final thing I just want to add, because again, all of this is very tentative and not even in a pilot stage, if you will, is we have the issues. Okay, so who's going to pay for it, or who's going to be responsible? What types of facilities do we need? If investments are needed, who's going to do those? Who's going to be providing the different kinds of service, pickup boxes, charging stations, if you will, and others. And there's basically no answer to that yet in the Swedish context, but we're moving toward a deepened understanding. So not saying very much in a concrete fashion, but still this is how we're thinking and trying to figure stuff out.
Magnus is going to try and be there in May in person. So
I will.
He wants to come from Sweden by train, so train or public transport. So I'm sure we can help. Do Laurie or Jenny wish to say anything before we move to Padlet and Rennie gets bombarded with questions as well? Laurie or Jenny, anything from your?
Yes, sure. I could add something. So I think it's quite the same like in Sweden, that we don't have so much this mobility hub concept working in rural areas. So services are generally quite limited, and I think they're not well integrated yet. But what we are at the moment doing some research is, so it's like tourism mobility, and in rural areas, when you develop services for tourism, it also provides new services for the local people. So in this way, we are more like developing integrated mobility services, and also adding like tourism services and other services in the same like service offering. But it's ongoing development what we are doing.
And from a personal point of view, I'm going to Finland next week, and I'm going to see Jenny. Haven't seen her in years, so I'm having a gin, aren't we, Jenny? Because that's what
Yes, sure.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to see Laurie in person. He's in Italy. So, Laurie, any comments from Italy, from hubs?
Not really on practical schemes here, but we're doing a lot of work on zero carbon pathway tools, which would be nice to develop in a rural context. I was very interested. I heard René's presentation pre-pandemic at the cafe, and I thought it was really good. And again, a very good presentation today. I was very interested in the co-working spaces idea, because I think we're living in a time where we can't take anything for granted now. I'm not suggesting we batten down the hatches, but certainly I think co-working spaces, as opposed to working from home, are a good idea. And particularly in a rural context, I was very interested in that, Magnus, very interested. The other point that got me was the guy in the video who said, I probably know that person already. And it reminds me of some work I did where we looked at the oxytocin hormone, which is the sharing hormone. It's the bonding. It's the we all love to share, and we all have this oxytocin hormone in our bodies. But it's also a bonding hormone. So it says, well, I'd love to share with you, but we're not sharing with them. And I think when we do these online tools and these platforms, and a lot of them don't work over the years, they don't meet their potential, because you've got to work within communities, like all people at a workplace or whatever. And rural areas actually have quite an advantage there, because they are closed communities. And there's a possibility that these platforms will work much better in rural areas than indeed in cities. So I was quite interested in what that guy said. So I think I've waffled enough.
You've done a good intro. I've just put the Padlet in the chat. If people want to click on that, and it will open up in their browser. You can I'll explain to you how to add your comments, etc. here. But if you have a question, I don't know, Alex, if anybody's put a question in the chat, because I haven't been able to multitask that, for Rennie. But while you're digging through the chat, or is there a question there before I do a Padlet intro?
Just some comments from Magnus. No questions from what I can see at the moment.
Okay, I will explain Padlet to those of you that have not seen it before that we use. So on the bottom right, you will see a plus sign here,